Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Today's Wednesday. We're going to do our next lesson, 9.2. We are going to solve some percent problems. So let's go ahead and get our notes going right away today so you have plenty of time to work on those IXLs. All right, so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be finding the percent of a number. So our learning target is I can find the percent of a number using multiplication. So I've got a couple problems here for us to take a look at as pictures, and I'm going to do one of them, and I just want to show you how this works. So I've got this picture here, I've got this bar, I've got a percent, and what I want to do is I want to find what is 30% of 50. So what I know is that this whole thing right here, this whole bar from here to here, this is worth 50, okay? That whole piece is worth 50. Well, if we look, there's 10 different boxes. So if the whole thing is worth 10 boxes, or the whole thing is worth 50 and there's 10 boxes, that means that each box is worth 5. So that one's 5, that one's 5, that one's 5, that one's 5, and so on. So I'd have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. So if I counted by 5s all the way up, I'd end up with my total of 50. Well, I want to know is I want to find 30% of 50. So if I draw my little picture here, there's 30% right there. So I want to know how much is that? Well, if each box is worth 5, that means that 30% of 50 is 15. Let's do number 2 as well. So this time I want to find 45% of 120. So that means that this whole thing here is 120. Again, I have 10 boxes, so that means that each little box is worth 12. Okay? So if I counted by 12s, I'd end up with 120 all the way down. Well, this time I want to know what's 45% of 120. So there's 10, 20, 30, 40. All right, there's 40, and then a halfway through then would be to 45. So I've got 12 here. I've got 12 there, 12 and 12. So I'm up to 48, and then I have a half. Well, half of 12 is 6, and 48 plus 6 is 54. So it means that 45% of 120 is 54. Okay. All right, let's take a look at our examples here in some direction. So to find a percent of a number is pretty easy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write the percent as a decimal. Remember, to write a percent as a decimal, we just divide by 100. And then I'm going to multiply. So in my first example, I have find 72% of 225. You'll notice that I have 72% and I have 0.72. Those are the same number. Okay? And then I just multiply by my other number, which is 225, and I get my answer of 162. Over here I have a decimal point in my percent. That is not a problem. I can turn that percent into just a straight up decimal point, which is 0.125, and then I multiply my other number. So let's take a look at a couple examples. You will want a calculator out with you today when you're doing this lesson. So I have 40% of 70. So the first thing I want to do is I want to turn my 40% into a decimal by dividing by 100. And 40 divided by 100 is 0.4. Then all I do is I multiply by the other number. So I need to do 0.4 times 70. And I get 28. So that means that 40% of 70 is 28. All right, number 2. 55% of 160. So I'm going to take my 55% and I'm going to divide by 100 because I need to turn that into a decimal. And I get 0.55. Then all I do is I multiply the other number times 160. 55 hundredths times 160 is 88. So that means that 55% of 160 is 88. All right, we're going to skip number 3 and we're going to move on. Now, what happens when you have these problems and you have a number that's more than 100%? Nothing changes. You still follow the exact same steps. I'm going to take my percent and I'm going to turn it into a decimal by dividing by 100. 120 divided by 100 is 1.2. And then I'm going to still multiply by my other number. Now, since I am multiplying my other number by more than the number 1, I'm going to get a bigger number. So this time I get 90. So it means that 120% of 75 is 90. We're going to do one more of these together. Number 2, I have 150% of 36. So I'm going to take my 150 and I'm going to turn it into a decimal by dividing by 100. 150 divided by 100 is 1.5. I'm just going to times by my other number. So I have 1.5 times 36, and I get 54. So that means that 150% of 36 is 54. We're going to skip number 3. Let's move down to our word problem here, and I think we're just going to do one of them. We're going to do letter A. So my problem says, Mr. Lombard conducted a survey about the number of television in his students' homes. The results are displayed in the graph. Letter A says, if Mr. Lombard surveyed 275 people, how many would be expected to have 3 televisions? If I look at my graph, I know that 23% of the people have 3 or more televisions. So what I'm looking for is I want to know what is 23% of 275. So it's the exact same problems that we've just been doing. I'm going to take my 23%, I'm going to turn it into a decimal by dividing by 100, and I get 0.23. And then all I need to do is multiply by my other number, which was 275, and I get 63.25. Now I'm talking about people, so I can't have a fraction there, so I'm just going to say 63. So I would expect 63 people to have more than 2 televisions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our lesson for today. You do have 2 IXLs that you need to do. One of them is the numbers are just going to be given to you like in the first couple examples we did. And then the next one you are going to have word problems. So making sure that you're just multiplying that percent as a decimal by the total, and you'll be very successful. Let me know if you have any messages on Schoology, and I'll be sure to help you out. Bye, guys.